Hello and welcome to the Meeple Minded. My name is Jason and today we are serving up a spicy little showdown of tension, tactical douchebaggery and a mountain load of headache-inducing decision making. And that can mean only one thing, it's a two-player flavoured version of Azul. It's Azul Duel. Azul Duel is the latest in the Azul line of games to hit the market, as well as the latest in the ever-growing, dedicated two-player game market. The real question is though, when the original versions of Azul play really well at two players, did we really need a dual version? Let's find out. The components included within the box are for the most part as you would expect from an Azul game. Starting off, of course, you have the lovely ceramic/acrylic tiles themselves, which feel very good in the hand and have a decent pattern applied to the surface of most of those tiles. There are some, however, that have no application to them, and being completely honest, these feel a tad unfinished by comparison. The main game board and player boards are foldable affairs in this version and have nice artwork applied throughout. Where these are let down, however, is with their flimsy nature. The evidence is already there that they have already started to show signs of wear and tear, despite not being that old or not used all that much either. Of course, we have to include the almost mandatory affair at this point, which is of course the disposal tower for the tiles. And new for this version of the game are a few tokens that also have artwork nicely applied. The gameplay, as you might assume for a duel game, can be quite mean and lead towards hate drafting. And you'd be right, more so than in the other versions of the game. In Azul Duel, players will be taking turns drafting tiles of a selected colour from one of the factories, and the remaining tiles are then stacked to the player's order of choice. This will undoubtedly lead to checking your opponent's board to see what they do or don't need at any particular time in the game, ensuring of course that the ones they do need are going to be underneath the others. The other option that you have on your turn is to take dome plates. This is limited to just 2 per round, and is tracked using 2 new player tokens that come in the game. The little caveat to this one though is there's only ever 3 on show, and if you end up having to take one from the stack of face down ones, it's going to cost you 1 point per one that you want to draw, and then you pick from those ones that you've drawn. So in other words, every single round, whoever is taking the very last tile, I guess, is going to be paying points to do so. Once all the tiles have been taken from the factories, a token will be revealed at the bottom of the stack, and those tokens have half or 2 halves of a tile. These can be combined and used later in the game during the tile placement stage. Once all tiles and tokens and dome tiles have been collected, you would move on to the placement stage and of course the scoring stage further on from that. But of course, for the full rules of the game, we recommend watching a how to play video. So guys, what are we going to say in our final thoughts and summary on Azul Duel? And I guess the real question is, does it differentiate itself enough from the previous versions of the game to warrant this extra release? So let's answer that question straight away. If you have the original Azul, or even the mini version of it, I do not think I would want to spend my hard-earned money to get the dual version. It is very, very similar to the original versions. And to be honest, those original versions, to me, play best at 2-player anyway. However, if you are like me, where you no longer own any of the original Azuls and your partner was very displeased at you for selling the original versions, then Azul Duel could actually be your ticket back into the good books, because Azul Duel is actually pretty good and captures a lot of that fanfare of the original versions. I would say it's most like the original 3 versions of Azul and less like the 4th version, which is, I believe, is Queen's Garden. But yeah, there's elements of the original 3 in Duel itself. So let's just talk a little bit about the additional things that we have in the gameplay here. I think the inclusion of the half tokens for me just seems to add another fiddly unnecessary step in the gameplay. True enough though, it does provide players with an escape if the only other option they have at the time is to take tiles that you can't fit on your board. But I guess that's kind of similar to the stained glass thing, where you're moving your worker back instead of taking tiles and then having to trash them and thus taking minus points. But yeah, for me, it kind of wasn't really necessary, and I found myself not really using them in most of the games that I've played. A couple of games it's come in handy right in the last round where I've gone, oh, I'm 1 short on this, oh well, I've got 2 tiles, so there we go, I've managed to score some points there. So it swings and roundabouts as to whether I like or dislike that particular new mechanism that's in the game. The gameplay does move at a pretty quick pace, but as with all games of this type, this can draw out the analysis paralysis in people, which will undoubtedly slow down the game, right? And because you're constantly checking your opponent's board as well, that will also add to the gameplay time, because you're not only thinking about what you want, you're also thinking about what your opponent wants, and then you need to figure out what tiles you need to stack and how we stack them and all that kind of gubbins. But for me, I think the original Azul way of doing it, where you take your tiles and then everything just goes into the center, that I think I prefer that way of doing things. Short of all of those things though, I am actually a fan of the gameplay mechanisms in Azul Duel. And for me, I do think it has enough differences to, differentiate itself from its older siblings. It's just whether or not you need all of them in your collection, and I don't. That's where my mind is at. Like, I don't think I need all of them in the collection. But for me, Azul Duel is going to stay in the collection for a little while, at least on the gameplay. So of course I did bring up a little bit earlier that the components are a bit of a letdown for me, and to be honest, that's been a trending thing really with the Azul games. Probably since the very first one, they've steadily got worse in their production over time. The tiles have always remained very good quality and what have you, but the player boards, for example, they've got thinner and thinner and thinner over time. And with this one, because they're folded boards to fit inside the box, it really has accentuated the amount of damage that they are going to take. And to be honest, I don't think those boards are going to last all that long, and that's the problem for me, is because when they do eventually break, I don't know that this game has enough for me to warrant buying another copy of it just to ensure that I've got a functioning version of it. It might not have been a problem having those folding boards if they were proper thick punchboard or cardboard stock. So yeah, for me, the components really was a bit of a letdown, but other than that, like, visually, it's a very, very beautiful game. It would have been nice to have some kind of box insert inside this box, but, that's just not something that I think any of the versions have had. So, yeah, overall, I must say that I have enjoyed my time playing Azul Duel, and this version provides me with just a little bit more than the original did without overcomplicating the game, because, let's be honest with each other, Azul and all of its, siblings are meant to be that sort of very entry-level, welcoming gateway game, if you like. And I think Azul Duel fits in that one as well. But really, how much mileage you're going to get out of this game really does depend on you and your gaming partner that you're going to be playing this with. I personally know that me and my partner playing Azul, we love playing the originals Azul at 2 players. She hasn't yet to play this, so I'll be interested to see how she feels with regards to Azul Duel and whether she prefers it over the original. That's my my thoughts on Azul Duel. What are your thoughts on Azul Duel? Let me know down in that comment section. Of course, if you have enjoyed this video, please do give us a like. And of course, the most important one here on YouTube is, if you like what we do here at the Meeple Minded, please do subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any further content that we put out. We are, of course, off to UK Games Expo very, very soon, so you can expect lots of content coming from that. But until next time, I have been Jason, you have been watching the Meeple Minded, and I will see you on the next one.